.com for their sponsorship of the first couple months of 2022. They offer full cycle career coaching services, including professional transitions, transformations, leadership development. Their holistic, high regarded coaching system represents the next level in services. It linked purpose to action. Their website will be up in the comments section, and their information is scrolling across the bottom. But today, this is something that I've never done. When I finished 2021, I did a live one, which was, we'll call it the suspect at best once people start yelling and screaming around you. But we got a nice quiet situation here. We've got a great panel discussion. We've got Tim Lynn, the co-founder of 4th Street Capital, a private boutique equity firm, and a co-founder of Startup TNT, which is an angel syndicate that has raised over $5 million for local startups in just over 2 years. Denise Baril, the founder of the Grant Sherpa. They help guide you through the grant process, and they do many more, and we'll get into that. And Bryan Slauko, the co-founder of Metiquity, who mobilizes early stage growth for founders, and of course myself. So how was everybody's start to 2022? Bryan?
That's been great. Amazing so far. Yeah. Looking forward to a big year this year. Had a nice little bit of downtime to get refreshed over the holidays. So we're back and ready to go. This is a great way to kick things off.
Oh, that's sure. And Tim, you know, welcome back to Canada. You know, you out of all of us, you by far had the most interesting holiday season.
Yeah, quick trip to Africa. My first purchase in 2022 in Canada was a space heater. So trying to keep warm.
And Denise, you know, proudly flying the Flames jersey after an ugly loss last night. But hey,
totally. You know what? And just kind of apropos to the topic today is that you know, we can make mistakes and then get back up and take over. So Tampa Bay, watch out.
Well, positivity is a key thing, but I think it could be another ugly game. You know, the one thing, I mean, we could talk all day and just have a normal conversation, and we're going to, but you know, usually I only go about a half an hour. We're going to definitely go longer than that because you three have such knowledge to share, and we'll have such great information, especially for startups. And if anybody is watching this live, because we are, you know, plop your questions in there. We'll answer them. If we can't get to them during the broadcast, we will answer them after the fact. So I'm going to start it off with, you know, Tim, and we're all going to kind of answer these questions, but how and why do you think entrepreneurs get in their own way?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear everybody else's answers, but I think that the thing that I find is that people don't obviously get in their own way intentionally. I think it's just a function of not knowing what comes next. It's sort of like being an entrepreneur is like being a firefighter in a whole bunch of different, you know, trained specialties that obviously you don't have the training in all of those specialties to be able to put up those fires. And when everything's on fire at the same time, you know, it's just kind of game over. And so knowing when and where to spot those fires and be able to put them out makes it really tricky. And so especially for first-time founders, everything just sort of catches on fire at the same time and they get overwhelmed. And so I think being able to have people around you that can help spot those before they grow out of control is the name of the game. And that's most often, I think, how people get in their own way is not surrounding themselves by, you know, with those folks that are able to help them out and you know, be coachable and be able to help see that.
Well, I agree with that statement big time. Bryan, how about yourself?
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I think the most challenging situations I've seen is usually there's a general lack of self-awareness, I'd say, with the founders or the entrepreneurs. And again, it's not, they're working hard, they got their head down, you're in the weeds, and it's easy to you know, kind of lose track of some things. And that self-awareness it's critical for me. And I guess, I mean, that leads to a lot of things, but the big one for me is just there's these unknown unknowns, like things we don't know that we don't know. And if we're a first-time founder, we're in this for the first time. We haven't experienced a lot of things yet. Like Tim said, we need to surround ourselves with some great people, diverse sets of people that have different experiences that we don't have. We have to be willing to learn, be humble, always be open to learning new things, and just realize there's things that we don't know, and we don't have all the answers. And we need to seek out advice and just have our eyes opened up to what some of those things may be, so that we can plan appropriately and you know, strategize and plot the right path forward for ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. Denise, your thoughts?
Yeah, just to add on that, because I agree with both what you said so far, but it's like you can do the same thing again and again and keep getting the same result of no money and no opportunity. So that's when you got to sit back and take a look at, say, who is the audience that I'm trying to reach and what do they need to see from me? And sometimes it is, like you said, Bryan, stepping out of and saying, okay, I need to kind of go out and get advice and maybe get some support to figure out what we're not doing well, so that we can gain more traction faster.
Yeah, and I think, it's not easy for many to let themselves be vulnerable enough to go ask for help, right? Because it's just not natural for some people. So I think stepping out of those comfort zones again, realizing it's okay to ask for help or to ask for advice from other people. I mean, we all need help at some point, and it's totally okay to go seek that out, right?
And
Absolutely.
Like the flip side of this that I see as well is that like people generally will have a comfort spot, like they'll see problems that they know how to solve, and they'll just solve them for things that are coming way down the line instead of focusing on the things that are right on the front line. They'll just like solve for their specialty all the way down, which, there's all this stuff that's going to blow you up right away. Instead of solving for all that, you need to solve for this stuff that's right here. And so that's another way that I think people get in their own way as well.
No, I see that a lot, right? Like, and I talk about it all the time. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. And so many companies that we deal with, or we see, or we talk to, even if it's just having a conversation at a networking event, they'll come up and say, "Oh yeah, we were struggling this," and you're like, "Well, why don't you ask?" We got a very collaborative a society here in Alberta, especially for startups, where if you know what, I can't help you, or any three of us can't help you, I can guarantee you we know somebody that will introduce you that can help you. And that's such a big thing moving forward with entrepreneurs, because they need to ask for help. It's not a journey you need to take alone. And it was Tim said about these challenges. So when people see these challenges, they view on that kind of silo right there where, they're avoiding the other four silos of challenges. So why do you think they actually have problem solving, only one problem and kind of avoiding the next challenge? Tim, why don't you go?
Okay, somebody first.
Oh no, you went first last time. Bryan, you go.
For me at least, I know that for example, I don't have a marketing background. I don't really know what I'm doing in the marketing world. I just sort of know that it's a problem. I'm like, all right, I know that we got to like solve this, but I know how to do a whole bunch of other stuff. And so, it's just a function of, one, unfamiliarity, and two, not even like I know that there's a problem, but I don't know the questions to ask. Like we just hired a marketing person at Startup TNT, and like the job description is like, I don't know, we need to hire somebody that's good enough to know what we need to do, because none of us have any clue. And so it's really tricky when you don't have the resources, or you don't have the kind of the maturity to be able to let other people that hopefully know more than you just take it and run with it, instead of trying to like own every problem that exists. I think that's probably one of the ways that ends up happening.
Denise?
Yeah, just in addition, I see that there's, I work in the non-dilutive space and helping people with the grants and the strategy to kind of fund their business. And one of the things that I see is if they're technical people, like I call them the brainy Smurfs, they really know how to sell the technology in the R&D space. But then when it comes to raising capital, they're terrible at pitching the business side. So you have to, it's much like Tim said, you have to know what if you don't have that skill set, kind of go out and get, like, Jade, you say, show up for the Founders Coffee, show up for these Startup TNT, show up for Startup Calgary events, and start asking those questions to figure out how other people figure out how to expand and build their team. Because if you stay doing what you're doing, you're going to continue to get the same result.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that self-awareness again for me, because it's really easy just for a lot of people just to do what's comfortable, right? And doing what's comfortable often just means ticking off some boxes and getting some to-dos done, and that feels good. But those aren't necessarily the things that are going to drive your business forward and make you successful, right? So you need to be able to look in the mirror and understand where your comfort zone is, and don't fall in that trap of just staying there. You got to push yourself out. You got to seek better and seek different ways of learning things and getting help from different places. And I think a lot of people, myself included, in my own past business ventures, if you don't plan for something, you're probably not going to accomplish something, right? So you need to set out a 90-day goal. So you need to have some clearly established goals and a plan for how you're going to do that. And also how you're going to measure if you've been successful or not. If you're trying something, you're working on something, you don't track it, and you don't measure it, you've got no way of knowing if it's working or not, right? So I think that whole planning process is critical. Get out of the weeds, lift your head up, spend some time dedicated to working on the business instead of just being stuck working in the business, and set some plans for yourself, and be able to measure as time goes by and see how you're doing. Otherwise, how would you know, right? It's difficult when you're stuck in the day to day.
Well, and setting those plans are so important, whether it be a sales playbook, Tim mentioned maybe a marketing playbook, how you're going to do it, setting, the 30, 60, 90, 1 year plans. I can guarantee you in 2 weeks that's going to change, but at least you have some guidelines that's going to do it. And every time a fire pops up, you're able to kind of put it out, but you still have you still have your goals set. And then once you set those goals, you're able to bring in the right people or look for the right people that can help you. So you have a better plan rather than saying, I need this marketing person, or what am I going to do? Or I go just panic and hire somebody, or I just start asking everybody for advice. And then of course I get 50 opinions and I'm still kind of in the same book. Yeah. So I love that planning and that succession. Have you, Tim, can you share any examples of clients that you guys have done, especially through the 4th Street Capital, which everybody's with Metiquity's 4th Street Capital, Startup, TNT, the Grant Sherpa, all the stuff is in the comments section. So if you want to find more information about any of the companies out there, just click on them and it'll take you directly to their website.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll reference this company a little bit later. And Denise, you're coincidentally enough, you were chatting with them a little bit earlier, but one of my clients has implemented for a long while the entrepreneurial operating system, which I think is really fantastic. And we've started to do that here at TNT as well. And Jade, if you've noticed, we've kind of changed our internal messaging as well around goals and kind of like the long-term vision and the breaking it all the way down to the quarterly rocks. And I think that EOS as a high-level concept, to be able to just, instead of reinventing the system, just taking that and running with it, I think is pretty fantastic for a way to break all that sort of stuff down. And it kind of forces you to focus on the whole range of items that are right in front of you, and focus up on stuff, which I don't know. I'm learning what it is and how useful it is, and how easy it is to kind of start running with it, and seeing the nodding heads. I think that's probably a good one. So. Yeah,
I totally agree. I think that's an amazing resource for any entrepreneur. Years ago, I spent 5, 6, 7 years in a business coaching program, and spent a lot of time learning all the stuff that's in that book, but also spent a lot of time resisting what was in there, because I'm just a personality where I had to go make mistakes and learn it by myself the hard way, right? So I think if people can take that resource and accept it and just trust what's in there and stick to it, it's amazing. You'll get yourself much further ahead, and you give yourself a system to operate off of. I think I'd highly recommend it to people for sure. And just again, take it, trust it, go with it, and it should be a great starting place for people.
I think the other piece that, just to add on to that, is it's not just about the founders, it's about the team that they have, right? So there has to be, one of the gaps that I see a lot of times is the communication between the team members. So, as founders, you may be driven and you may be doing your rocks and you may be going, but is there communication not only with your team, but stakeholders like us, right? Are you communicating to everybody who can help you accelerate? I was just on a call with a client yesterday who told me something, and I'm like, oh, did you know about this? Oh, Denise, I forgot to tell you about, which could have triggered funding for them, right? So it's really important that you stay in touch. Not only do you set your goals yourself, but you have to communicate them to other stakeholders in your team to really gain traction and get the most out of them.
People are the heartbeat of your company, of any company, and it doesn't matter. And it gets down to the root basis that people will buy from people. Why am I loyal to this company or that company? Or even if I go down to our sports teams, why do I keep buying from that one, our jerseys from that one person? Because I trust the people. I trust the guy or the girl, whoever it is. And having that plan in place, whether it's EOS or something that you've done or different. I mean, I could reach over here and grab 3 books that we could also talk about. But having the right processes in place allows you to hire the right people. And that's such a key. And in my opinion, capital's nice, but if you don't have the right people, capital is not going to really help you. Capital can almost get you into more trouble. And I know, Denise, you look for the non-dilutive funding. So why don't we talk about capital? I mean, people always think, oh, if I had $500,000, it would solve all my problems. Yeah. And I was like, well, it's going to create problems you don't even know you have yet. Yeah. So let's
And I
talk
think
a
for
little
me,
bit about capital.
yeah, for me, it's about being prepared. And I'm sure the capital guys can agree. It's like, when you're going to raise money, whether it's capital or non-dilutive funding, you still kind of have to have a plan. And you have to understand today that the market is very competitive. So prior to COVID, I would help clients and say, okay, we need this information to kind of go forward. And within 2 days, we had an answer and we had a grant in place. It rocked, right? It was really great for my business. When COVID hit, the competition for the money escalated. So for me today, it's really important that people have a planned approach to how they're going about it, because it's not as easy as it was. So when we talk about the things that you need to have ready, or whatever, for example, like a business plan, not everybody agrees that you need a business plan. I say, if you're going to do it well from the start and build on those tools to help your business grow. But yeah, I just find that people think it's just easy to get kind of just do the basic, but you need to kind of take it to the next level to beat the competition in the marketplace.
Right?
Yeah. So is capital going to help? I guess it really is. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think if you're aware enough to know, again, where your strengths and weaknesses are as a team. Again, I'm coming from a perspective of investing in like pre-revenue and early revenue companies. So we've got teams of 2-3 people often. So there's going to be some gaps in that team still. If it's a situation, where you've clearly identified you've got some needs, there's a gap in your skill set, raising some money is going to help plug that gap and help propel you forward. Perfect. That's a great situation to raise some money into. But if that awareness isn't there and it's not well thought out and planned for, then raising money, it's just going to lead to a slow, painful death often, I think, because you're still not addressing the problems that they're there, and more money just lets you keep doing what you're doing and maybe not doing the right things, and just prolong the inevitable. So that's those are my thoughts anyway.
Yeah, to add on to that, I think that without like a really solid plan and being self-reflective, like we were talking about earlier, I find that I've seen this a few times where people will raise like a pretty astounding amount of money and know that they have a whole bunch of problems, and then their solution to the problem is to just overhire and hire so many people that it ends up, just with entropy and general not knowing how to manage, because your solution to it was to hire a whole bunch of people. You end up just like burning the thing out, running through all of the cash and just running it to the ground, unless it's stopped in some way. And so, raising money can be fantastic because you need it. It's the lifeblood of any burgeoning startup that's, burning cash in order to get to market. But on the flip side, without a bunch of sophistication and some smart folks around the table that know how to use it wisely, it can be, kind of a knife right in the back if you use it in the wrong way. So
yeah, I agree. And raising too much money can be a bad thing as well, right? I mean, some people set out a goal to raise $2 million at a very early stage when they should probably be raising $500,000. And why is that a bad thing? I think too much money in the bank lets you get complacent and just sit around and be a little bit lazy, right? But if your cash is a little bit tighter, you've raised money to accomplish a couple of short to midterm goals, then you got to be really focused and driven to accomplish those things still, and money can get in the way of that if there's too much of it.
Yeah.
The other piece, so I just can add that it's really important too when you're raising money. Also think about the money you can actually capture in non-dilutive funds. So if you raise $1 million, you may be able to capture $1 million, right? So people don't think about in their plan as they're strategizing, as they're raising that money. So it can be used, but again, back to that plan of using the money strategically and having a plan for it versus just willy-nilly, hey, we got the money, let's now go doing the same things.
Yeah, I think if I can just add to that real quick, like Denise, every company we've invested in, like as soon as there's some cash in the bank, that's the time to start going after the non-dilutive money, because those programs usually have some kind of matching component. Yeah. So let's go get it while we've got some cash in the bank, and that's great for equity investors because it's non-dilutive. It's great to accelerate your plan because there's some extra cash there that maybe we haven't didn't rely on when we made an investment initially.
Yeah. And when I work with clients, one of the things that I talk to them about is the buckets of money. You have your own capital. There may be investor capital, there's bank loans, and then there's grants, right? So knowing what time to pivot and which one to get into at what time to maximize your opportunity is really an important piece to that planning.
And everything goes back to what you just said, planning, making sure that you have some roadmap. I mean, and you might not be thinking grants might be 8 months away, but before you know it, it could be 3 months away. Right. And things like that. And as you say, Denise, it is getting extremely competitive. And, I have boatloads of people phoning me saying, oh yeah, I'm going to get grant money. I'm like, probably not. Like, why don't you have a half an hour discussion with Denise and then she'll fill you in. There's kind of a,
what's funny is everyone thinks, oh, there's free money and the government should give it to me. So I can tell you that it's similar to capital raising. There's probably the 1% that actually get the money because of their planned approach, right? Because they know all the check marks that the government, it's like governments are worse investors than, they're not worse investors. What they are is they're more strategic about their investments because they're handling Canadian taxpayer money. So they want to ensure that what they're doing and what they're investing in is very strategic, right? And kudos to them. There's some great accelerators, like Alberta Innovates just invested in a whole bunch of different accelerators to, again, help businesses be more planned about what they're doing so they can scale successfully.
Yeah. No, and Denise probably people should realize that, in applying for those non-dilutive sources of money, like that's where an actual written business plan is pretty critical in most cases, right? Not a one-page plan, right? Like an actual business plan.
Oh no, I like, this is my, the pain of my life is trying to communicate, not just having a willy-nilly, like I love lean canvas when you're starting out, but if you're looking at the big picture of your business and you really want to have a successful business, even going through the process of writing a business plan, it's hard, it's not easy, and it takes time. But it's going to help you not only in the non-dilutive, but in the capital raise side. So if you have that moving forward, it's like there's a convergence between the documents that I get companies to start preparing in the grant data space, data room, lead into the capital data room, right? So it's like you can use it for both purposes, but don't, again, the competitive marketplace, you really want to start doing it well from the start.
It all starts from the beginning.
Yeah. Tim, thoughts on that?
No, my favorite thing about sort of like the business plan or financial model and those sorts of things, there's value to having the business plan on paper from the perspective of course, grants or showing to investors that you've thought through stuff. But the most valuable part is forcing you to think through all of these things. Like I've had people that are like, can you build me my business plan? No, the point is for you to think through it. You can't outsource thinking through this stuff. You're the founder, like you got to do this.
And the same, Tim, do you find the same when in Startup TNT? Because I've heard this before, when you go to, people go to present their business and it's not the founder who's pitching, like the value, like it's like, oh, it's not the guys who are really behind this. It's only someone they put up from a sales perspective.
Yeah, I find that a little tricky. Like a founder, you're making a bet, and maybe this is a little bit of a tangent, but in early stage investing, pre-seed or seed, you're making a bet on a founder or a group of founders, and those are inherently, those have to be salespeople. They can have their depth in, product or engineering or marketing or finance or whatever the vertical is, but they have to be salespeople. They have to be people. They have to be willing to get out there, because at the end of the day, starting a company, it's a group of people working together to solve a problem, and that requires you to be able to bring a group of people together. To be able to get investors, to be able to get customers, to get employees, that's all being able to be on stage or being able to have a conversation with people. And if you can't do that in order to get capital for the business, like that's a giant red flag from my perspective.
And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, I've been investing for a while and now basically almost do it exclusively through TNT. Tim, you have, obviously, Bryan, this is really your world. I mean, I know everyone has their own little thesis, right? And I mean, I'm a big founder guy. I like founders. I've got to believe in that founder. So when you're looking at these companies, yes, how important is the plan, the financial layout, the founder? Like what is your process?
I'd say that, again, most people often say it, but I think it is very true. We're investing in the team, and that's what's most important. And so for us, like if someone's looking to raise money and, they say we want to close in 3 or 4 weeks, like it's not going to happen, because I need time to build a relationship with the founders and get to know them and see how they work through challenges and how resilient are they. And so it's not uncommon for me I'd rather meet them early before they're formally raising money and start to build a relationship. And if I've known them for 6 months, by the time they're ready to go raise money, and we've probably helped give some advice to say, well, you should think about such and such in the structure or evaluation, then I want to know that those people, that team can can be resilient and work through some challenges that I'm going to see them work through along the way as we get to know them. And then, the formal diligence around the business plan and financial model is, if it's on paper and it's written down and they've thought it out, that's great. It certainly helps accelerate the process. But for me, it's mostly building that relationship with people. We have to be able to trust them. And so I guess having said that, I'm just thinking about a company we invested in that like everything was written down. Everything was written down in Q&A documents and business plan. Everything was written down. And like it really did make things a lot easier, because it just gives us as investors a whole nother world of confidence. They've thought through all this stuff, right? And in other cases, I've made the time because I believe in the people, but nothing's written down. And it just makes our work that much more difficult and that much more time consuming to get through the process and get to the other side, right? So having that all planned out, I think it does give another level of confidence and will really help on the investment side of things. But it all comes back to the team, their ability to execute. Execution is everything in that first 12, 18 months after we make an investment. So being coachable, knowing that they're going to listen, seeing that they can execute, seeing that there's the right fit between the founders and the problem they're trying to solve and the mix of people on the team. Those are some of the biggest things we're looking for.
And Jade, how about you? You've become a big investor in the startup community. What are you looking for? Like, what are you?
I would probably just wouldn't use the word big. That's for sure.
You're having big impact.
I would use the word active. Active is probably a better word, right? But no, I'm a big fan of people, right? And everything goes back to people for me, right? I can't go and say, I mean, I even look at my, TNT experience, right? Like I didn't really know a whole lot, when I first became, threw in my money for, to go through them. I was like, well, if they're just going to pick the biggest company with the biggest long shot and go down that route and not really dive into companies and do due diligence, this will be the last investment I make through them. But And even on the investing side, it was like nice to have other people with better strengths. I know the team mentality where, I'm going to use Edon, like my tech knowledge is absolutely nil. Whereas I'm like, oh, if Edon says something, I'm like, oh my God, it's done. It's in stone. I love it. And I don't have to worry about that because I don't really focus on that. Does my phone work? Yep. Good. Okay. Let's move forward. Next question. and I think that's a really big thing when it comes to investing, right? I have to believe in that founder and getting, with peer guidance, we make sure that we try and help these companies get to that point. If they come and ask and say, oh, we need $500,000, can you get us that? I'm like, no, like, let's talk about how we're going to get there. How are you going to get there as a company? Who are you going to hire? What are you going to do? What are you looking for? How are you going to sell? Who are you selling to? There's so many variables that have to go. But, as an investor, when I'm helping company, I'm thinking that, and then I kind of think outside the box a little bit because I'm a big lifestyle company guy too, right? Like even our company we exited was more of a lifestyle company, but not all these companies are going to be billion-dollar companies or even $10 million companies. But if you can make somebody a really good business for 15 years and they exit it, for maybe a couple $1 million, 15 years down, 10 years down the road, they've probably hired a bunch of people. They've done it to our economy. Someone's going to purchase them after the fact. That's good. I mean, they can buy a house, they can support their family, go on vacations. Excellent. I really focus on a lot of that. And as an investor, I'm not really that interested in it, but you really want to make sure that the right people are in place. And again, it all comes down to that. And that's
I also think the scalability. So that's what, when we talk about government funding and we talk about investor funding, I want companies to think more about their long-term plan. Like, how are we going to scale up? Because mom and pop shops are great to kind of generate your own revenue, but people that are investing, whether it's governments or other investors, they want to look at the long-term plan and the big win for them, right? So whether it's the jobs they're creating or whether it's the revenue they're creating or if they're going global, like those are all the factors that need to be included in the big picture.
Yeah, I agree with that, Denise. And on the flip side, a little bit, I'd say, again, with the pre-seed stage investing, we obviously have to believe that there's a really big market opportunity there. But what's even more important is to know that the founders are focused on one small thing that they're going to go and get done and do a really good job of owning that in the first 18, 24 months. Because if they can't go and own that one thing that they're really, really good at, then they're not going to be able to branch into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I think the risk is that attempt at premature scaling of the business, which is, a key reason why so many businesses die early. So we need focus in the early days and not chasing too many other shiny objects, and making sure that we get something done and do it really well. And then other opportunities always will follow on with that, right?
My favorite is when people are, but Facebook is doing all of these things, but Apple has all of these things. Like, yeah, but you don't have 100,000 people working for you.
Yeah. Exactly.
I can't do everything by myself. Like, are you serious? Are you sure? Are you sure? Well, let's talk about helping, right? And again, as I said earlier, we are a very collaborative. All three of us here, or anybody else that we know, if someone comes to us and we can help them, we know somebody that can, and we'll guide them in the right way, whether it even be to an accelerator, through platform, or just another company, or finding a mentor for them, or whatever it may be. So I would like each of you to share one experience that you've had that you were able to help somebody, whether it's you helping them or passing it on, or a combo of both, however you want to explain it, with a startup or an entrepreneur. Denise, you haven't gone first yet.
Yeah, sure. Interesting last night, JD, you asked us that question to kind of think about. And so last night, my last call of the day was with an entrepreneur who's a client of mine. And it was like, bingo, here's the story. So it's a company that got referred to me. It's by Niraj Gupta. Shout out to Niraj and his incredible work that he's doing in the ecosystem. And it's a client that kind of was scaling environmental side. They came to me to help kind of raise the capital. Well, he said, you know what, we're struggling. And we had a call last night just to talk about some of the different opportunities that they have, like on a global space, and opportunities, and how do we get to that place? So a couple of weeks ago when we were chatting, I connected him to one of my other clients because they had technology, he has technology, and they need to kind of do something together. So I put them together and I say, you guys need to talk. Well, last night he said, Denise, by the way, I wanted to update you. That company that you introduced me to, we tested out our sensors in the space. We have another project we're working on together. And guess what? I didn't win a bid for a project, but I got another opportunity. And I'm going to be able to buy this other guy's sensors to be able to do this new project. So number one, we've helped connect them to other businesses where they may leverage opportunity. They've done a pilot test together, right? And for me, it's about collaboration in this ecosystem. It's not just, for me, when I work with clients, it's not just about helping them with grants. Like that's like the core. It's about, how does your business win, and who do you need to be connected to? So if they need help with peer guidance, I'm saying call Jade, have a chat with him about how they could support. Talk to Tim, like get involved in these networks, show up in these ecosystems. TNT has Thursday night gatherings in Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Regina, expanding in other cities. Get involved in the ecosystem. And these people like us will connect them to all those resources. So I think that's really, really important, is that helping them bridge out and connect to other services, and then sharing those stories, right? To make us continue wanting to do more of that.
Tim?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Of course, as you're alluding to, TNT, building that, I think, has been a bunch of fun and has helped a few folks, which is fantastic. But more tangibly, like from my perspective and on the consulting side, the company that I was alluding to and that you were chatting with earlier today, Denise, luxury consumer brand with retail footprint, bunch of inventory, COVID hits, and things just, causes a bit of a snafu in that regard. And just being able to help them. They're super thoughtful folks, and they know where finance is not their specialty, but they have their extremely deep areas of expertise, and being able to help come in and just very light touch, help them be able to see around those corners and be able to help them put out those fires a little bit, and most importantly, help them sleep at night. It's been a bunch of fun, and they're fantastic folks. And now we're helping them hopefully grow beyond their current kind of Alberta and Prairie's footprint, and ideally help them expand and think about things from a more venture perspective. And just being able to help give them the confidence to be able to do that has been a bunch of fun. And then the other one that I was also kind of alluding to, the one that raised a whole pile of cash and hired a whole bunch of people and things just started to spiral a little bit out of control. Being able to see that from the sidelines, and just, one of the co-founders left, kind of found somebody and helped bring them in, help replace the COO on sort of an interim basis and help them sort of right the ship, and just being able to, I have a pretty good relationship with that founder, and, his being able to be vulnerable and chat with me, I was able to kind of like help triage and find the right resources to help slot in, not that I had to do a whole bunch, but just being able to bring in the right folks and do that sort of stuff has been a bunch of fun. So to the point of, being connected with the folks that are able to help point you in the right direction or make the right intros and that sort of thing, I think is pretty useful. So, yeah.
Bryan?
I'll give a couple examples. First one, perhaps on the capital side of things. So as a fund, we like to invest. We're investing about $250,000 in maybe a $500,000 to $750,000 round. So we like to be first. We like to be a lead investor. First one in will be the first capital in, even if the rest of the money's not at the table yet. Money likes to follow money, and so we know that if we believe in the people, we'll put the money in, and that will help give them some momentum. And then the other thing that we do that helps with that process is we write a fairly comprehensive investment analysis and due diligence report, and share that with the founders. And if they have people they've been talking to who might want to invest, and they're welcome to share it and give it to other investors. And we want to be collaborative in that approach and help bring other capital to the table as well. Even, if it's non-dilutive money, if there's something in that document that we've actually had our companies take that and use that as a basis for their business plan sometimes, so they could get some things together to submit non-dilutive money. So we just want to take the work that we've done, and if that helps bring more capital to the table and accelerate the company faster, then that's great. So we like to do that. The second thing, once we're done an investment, we're meeting with our founders every 2 weeks, and so really just there to listen. And you name it, we've probably talked to them about it. But one of the most common things I'd say that we've done recently in a couple of companies, as they've been growing, having some success, needing to fill in those gaps on the team. We know people out in the space that have different expertise, and so we've brought to the table a couple of COO type people that we've introduced to a couple of our companies, and we've helped them get connected, get started on some little consulting type projects, get to know each other, and a couple of those have turned into actually full on COO type of roles. And so we want to be able to be there and listen and understand whatever challenge it is. We want to be able to connect the founders to whatever resources they need, whether it's people or strategic planning or just risk management, whatever it might be. We're there to listen and there to help after the investment, and that's at least as equally as important as the money to get people going at the start.
No, I mean, I could probably share 5 or 6 examples too. But I mean, other than trying to collide worlds, even if it's sharing stories through telling it like it is, or I call the founders coffee the poor man's EO. So these startups who can't afford, or don't have the 250 or 1.2 million to get into EO, they still have a place to network and share ideas and share stories. But the one thing that I love that we do the most is, within Pure Guidance, is bringing that team to a solo founder that may not have somebody to rely on. They can bounce ideas on, 24/7. I've gotten texts at 2 a.m. and I've responded to them. I don't know if that's good for me or not, but but I mean, you as an entrepreneur, we all understand that shit. There's nights we don't sleep. There's nights there's stresses. There's all the things that go with it, right? And when all of a sudden you have these other people around you that are there for you, and you can bounce an idea off of, or share an idea, or reach out to talk to, that's something that really makes me proud of what we do, and because we're more purpose before profit driven, not having saying you need to pay me X amount of dollars to guarantee to do that, whether we waive fees over a month or waive fees for COVID, we're there for people. And that's something that, puts a smile on my face every single day that we go, because again, we've all talked about it here, and it's people. And if we're not helping other people, why are we here? If we're not,
Jake, can I just jump in for a second? I just want to say that I attended one of the Pure Guidance with one of his clients, and I got invited to sit in. And that energy, the non-judgmental energy from entrepreneurs who have been there and have your back and know the pain points, and it's not an easy road, and just to listen to that energy of support. I walked away. It wasn't even my business. I was just there to sit in and listen in, but I walked away so inspired because I thought, they got their back, like they have their back.
Yeah.
And to have that support, when you're a founder and you're struggling, am I going to make it? Am I not? To have that support is something that you just can't measure.
Yeah, I totally agree. Having the empathy for people and understanding being able to walk in their shoes in these situations is critical if we're going to be able to help them out. And so it's important to listen.
Oh, listening's number one. Sometimes I think I'm a good listener, but sometimes I'm awful. And I'm sure we can all say that.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to, we've got a couple questions left here, and obviously everybody's, Brian's Metiquity's and Forestry Capital, Startup TNT, the Grant Sherpa, all the websites are in the comments section. So we're not getting a lot of questions. We're getting quite a few comments on the LinkedIn. So keep them coming. But what's next? What's next for you guys and lady? In the steps with your companies. Tim, why don't you start?
Sure. Yeah. So, 2022 is going to be a big year for Startup TNT. We got these, neon A's that Jade has over his shoulder. So that's, big win. But no, we're planning on, we have a life sciences summit coming up. We have a clean tech summit coming up, both in Q1, our regular summits in Q2 and Q4. We're planning on expanding to Manitoba, hopefully. And then the big one is that we're planning on launching a VC fund in order for us to have a little bit more impact in the world. To grow alongside what's effectively angel investing 2.0. So that's Startup TNT a little bit in 2022. We have a newsletter that'll have a little bit more information coming out a little bit later today. I saw the draft of it, and Zach may be pretty excited about what we're up to. So yeah, really big year.
What? Zach, get excited? Come on. Come on. Denise?
Oh, great. Yeah, lots of cool things. I think for me, it's, I'm actually, Tim, we'll have to chat because I'm becoming an expert advisor in the Life Sciences Hub, which is kind of exciting. So new startups in that space. I'm on the facilitating in the fast track for Alberta IoT and on their advisory board to help build the ecosystem in Alberta. And then I'm actually trying to tap into the higher levels of government. So ISED, if anyone's out there in ISED, I'd really love to have a play in trying to understand and communicate the demands in the funding space, because I see live what's going on and I see where the gaps are. And I'd really love to have better communication on a federal level to be able to say, hey, here's where we're going. Because I work across Canada now and really see that there needs to be more communication between the funding sources and the actual hands-on business needs.
Nice. Bryan?
Yeah, I think we're really focused on this, what we talk about and everyone here would understand, this pre-seed funding gap that exists in Alberta and even in Saskatchewan. It's if you're a founder, a first-time founder, which most are, and you need $500,000, $750,000, it's really hard to find that money. And the problem is there's not enough lead investors out there who can roll up their sleeves and be the first ones in and spend the extra time that's required to do that and bring the expertise that's needed to do that. And so that's our role. That's our goal to fill that. We've been doing that for about a year and a half now. We've invested a bunch of money. We're still raising money in our fund to continue growth. So over the next 6 months, that's our goal, is to get our fund to $10 million in commitments and close out that fundraising period. And we'll see how that goes. I think there's great opportunities in the Saskatchewan market as well. Similar challenges there as Alberta's having, yet lots of great opportunities, amazing people, great companies. We just, again, have to have the lens to see the opportunity. They're not pretty and polished, and they don't have $1 million or $2 million in revenue, but there's great hardworking people with really good ideas. And if we can, I think help them tell their stories a little bit better as an ecosystem in those early days, I think we got some work to do there. And obviously happy to be part of helping people to figure out that challenge as well. I think we need to make things. I guess the other thing for me and for our fund, and I think for everybody here, is just understanding that we have some educating to do in the investment ecosystem. For people feel they're not that familiar with investing in technology, we need to break that stigma, because it's really no different than investing in any other industry. If you've invested in innovation in oil and gas, you're looking at the same fundamental factors as we are as investing in a technology company. There is no real mysterious black box here. It's break it down to its fundamentals, keep it simple. It's not rocket science. We can figure it out like we can figure out investing in any other space. And we need people to see that and understand that. So that's other part of our goal, is to help just make sure that things get simplified out there, and that companies themselves need to be a part of that, and telling their story and understanding how to keep it simple is a huge part of that too.
Yeah, it's funny that you say telling your stories, right? And that's why I started telling it like it is 4 years ago, because there was nobody shouting from the mountaintops. And it's funny, recently we've been getting interviewed a lot because of what TNT is doing. And they're like, well, how come all of a sudden, there's so many great companies in Alberta? I was like, well, that's because you guys are late to the party. Like,
yeah.
They never print that. They use that part of the clip. But it's like, these companies just didn't get great when they got to Benevity or Cement. They've been great for a long time. And it doesn't matter who, like over 200 episodes of bringing on startups over here, a lot of them are still around today. And I think that says something about our ecosystem and the support that goes there. And that's kind of what, again, what I'm excited about for the next, 2022 is just being there, being the support, helping companies, helping them get to their, encouraging people if they want to invest, invest, come through TNT. It's a very easy process. Bryan, you talked about the learning, there's lots of classes that TNT teach. I mean, you can go out there and buy Bitcoin. I bought it at $200 and I don't have any of that left, but I mean, you can do whatever you want. And if you want to learn, there's a really good way to learn here through TNT. And I know it's, I'm part of it, but I believed in it so much. I think I've only made one investment outside of TNT in the last couple of years. Like it's just such a good way to meet companies, meet people, and invest. And I love that. So I think we're on the right path, as Alberta, as an ecosystem here. We talk about it. I still think we're early, and a lot of these angel investors will, once there's a few more exits, those $5,000 checks might be 25, and Bryan, your 250 might be $1 million entry now. Like we're on the right path with a lot of the right people here.
And I think the other thing, and this is kind of like Canadian pride, right? Is being able to be an investor and being able to start at being an investor at $5,000. Like that's an easy fit for a lot of people to be able to jump into the marketplace and say, hey, I want to contribute to this. It's not about, it's almost like we have to build the barn together, right? It's going back to those principles of how do we as individuals be able to contribute to growing this economy. It's not just about the government or about these giant investors. It's about us taking a role and taking a stand for wanting to be supportive and contributing to Canadian-made businesses.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Maybe less comment on that. For me, I think a big part of that is helping people understand how much risk has changed by investing in technology over the last 10 to 15 years. I say lots that 500,000 is the new $5 million, right? Like what used to take $5 million for a company to get to a certain point in time, they can do for $500,000 today, and they can get there in 6-12 months instead of 3 to 5 years. So the whole risk profile and path of growth of a technology company is very different than what many might remember from the .com era, when lots of people that will listen to this probably lost a lot of money, right? Things have changed. There's a lot more support in the ecosystem. The path is much quicker for people, and it's very different, and people need to understand that.
No, I agree. I totally agree. I'm always sad when I have to say this statement, but it's coming to an end. Like we could talk for another hour, and obviously our LinkedIn followers really want us to keep going, but we all have to get on our day of helping other people grow their businesses. So, this is a question that I thought would be done, 5 or 6 episodes in, because I would have heard all the answers already. But I just love the advice that comes out of, from people. So Tim, why don't we start with you, and then we'll go Denise and Bryan. But if you had one piece of advice for an entrepreneur startup, what would that be?
Yeah, I think it would be, to get out of your shell and meet some folks that hopefully are smarter than you, and be willing to be vulnerable and chat about what's going on, whether it's at, Founders Coffee or Startup TNT or, just showing up and chatting with other founders and asking them what they're finding tricky, or what you're finding tricky, and seeing what nuggets of wisdom they have to say. Being able to talk about what you're up to and be vulnerable and chat with other folks that have some wisdom is probably the single most useful thing that you can do as a founder.
Absolutely. Denise?
Yeah, I think just assessing your skill set within your business and find out what you're good at and outsource the rest, right? So don't stay stuck in just trying to do it all yourself, because you may not have it. And when you do outsource, you're also reaching the network of all those other stakeholders who are going to have your back, and they have connections to multiply your opportunity to get you scaling faster.
Nice. Bryan?
I'm a huge believer in purpose and why, knowing why you're doing what you're doing. So I tell companies all the time, spend all the time it takes. It takes a lot of time, but spend as much time as it takes to develop and be able to articulate a really simple purpose. Why does your business exist? What is the purpose of your business? Once you have that, it's so much easier to make decisions in your business. It's so much easier to align with the right kind of people, whether those are customers, employees, strategic partners. If you can't articulate a purpose, then things are just much more difficult. So nailing that down, I just can't say enough about it. I think it's critical, and you need to remember as a founder that you're not out there to please everybody. There's going to be people that don't care what you're doing. They may not agree with what you're doing, but you want people to find the people that believe what you believe. And if you can't articulate your purpose, then they're not going to be able to believe what you believe. And so you need to focus on that as part of telling a story and understanding why you're doing what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to expand on Tim a little bit, because I truly believe that this is a process that you don't have to go alone. And whether that be for business help, whether that be for mental wellness help, there's always someone that can be there for you. It's tough being an entrepreneur. It's having somebody to talk to, even if it's going for a coffee. I'm sure all three of us, if somebody wants to talk and reach out and say, hey, I'm struggling right now, not only with my business, but emotionally, like let's reach out and please ask for help, because it's a journey. You don't need to do this alone. My hashtag I use is "you're not alone." I know a lot of people use that hashtag, but I truly believe in that. And there are so many great people willing to help. So that's kind of my advice, is it's a journey you don't have to do alone, and ask for help. And again, I want to thank, Bryan, Denise, Tim, you guys for coming on and sharing your knowledge today. I really appreciate it. This was 100% Denise's idea. She mentioned something in December, and I asked all three, all you guys, and you're like, boom, I'm in. And I was like, Tim just got off the plane from Africa. Bryan's still probably just itching to get on the slopes here. And Denise, well, you can cry over your loss a little bit longer today from last night.
Yeah, that's great. I can't wait, Jade, can't wait to do some of these things live. Wouldn't it be cool if we could be around that audience who can we can have that interaction and generate more knowledge for the community that we're trying to serve?
Absolutely. And again, Founders Coffee's every Tuesday. Startup TNT is every Thursday. I know we're limited right now to tables of 10, and you can't mingle, or you might get the boot from the facility. But as Tim said, as we started, if you want to mingle, you can just walk out. And walk out slowly and say hi to everybody and then out the door type thing. But I appreciate everybody here for sharing your time today. Thank you again. I hope you all have a great day, and we will chat soon.